Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the USO MVP Military Virtual Programming. I am your host, Chris Jacobs, and I hope that wherever you are, you're happy, you're safe, and you're healthy. We appreciate your patience. Had a little bit of technical difficulties at the top there, but we are about to go live with a very special guest today. Members of our military community probably know him best from his roles in Black Hawk Down, Lone Survivor. Perhaps you saw one of my favorite movies, Chopper, which was one of his first movies, or maybe you saw him in Dirty John, which was excellent also. Please welcome the one and only Eric Bana. Eric, please join me. How you doing, my brother?
Oh, I'm good, thanks, Chris. How are you going?
I'm doing very well. And actually, the one project that I did not mention of yours that should be required viewing for any car guy, such as myself, is, of course, your 2009 documentary about your beloved 74 Ford Falcon XB. Love the beast. Very cool to have you with me today, man.
It's a pleasure to be here. Hi, everybody.
So where is the 74 these days? Still have her?
Absolutely. Yeah, it lives at home, and it's road registered and fully engineered, and I can just drive it and cruise in it and put a smile on mine and other people's faces, and I'll never sell it. Had it my whole life, and it's a keeper.
Yeah, I've got a car like that in my garage, actually. And, you know, yours is kind of the Australian version of American guys' car culture dreams, where maybe they see the Mustang from Bullitt and they've always wanted to get that car. In your case, it was the Ford Falcon from Mad Max.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was a little kid when I saw Mad Max, or as you guys, I think, in the American market know it as the Road Warrior, the original, and that was based on a standard 74 Falcon coupe like mine, and had a different front end on it, and it's such a beautiful shape. It's such an amazing shape. It has really wide guards at the rear because that car was built to race at Bathurst, which is a track that we race at here in Australia. So it's a very unique, it's a little bit Ford Torino Mustang-y, but with an Australian design bent.
Yeah, there's a little bit of Barracuda in there too. You know, that front end always reminds me. I'm a Mopar guy, so I'm always partial to the Mopar, so I got to mention the Barracuda in there. But
I'll forgive you for that today.
What's that?
I'll forgive you for being a Mopar guy today.
Okay, well, I'll forgive you for being a Ford guy. We're gonna agree to disagree on that, as car guys always do. I want to let everybody know who is joining us that you can ask Eric a question if you would like. Just simply use your chat feature. Tell us who you are, and where you are, and what your question is, and we'll try to get to as many of those as possible. Man, it's great to have you here today, Eric, because you know your career spans so many years and so many genres. And I mentioned Chopper. What a fantastic movie. And all these years later, you probably get recognized for that one a lot. That was incredible work and based on a true story.
It was, yeah. He was quite a well-known criminal here in Australia, and from my hometown, actually. And when I took on the role, I was always concerned that I would actually bump into him, you know, and then he ended up moving back to Melbourne from Tasmania, and then after the film came out, there was always a chance that I'd run into the guy. But yeah, it was a bit of a career turnaround for me. I went from sketch comedy on a show like Saturday Night Live, actually here in Australia, straight into Chopper, and just kind of never looked back from there, and have been given some incredible opportunities along the way, and I pinch myself every day.
That's really cool, man. We got 4 live locations that we're going to get to. They have some questions for you. And for the first one, we're going to go to Singapore and Commander Logistics Group Western Pacific. If you guys would please turn on your camera and join us. We'd like to say welcome to the show, and hello, Eric. How you guys doing?
Hey, what's going on? So myself, I'm Eric Bryan. This is Eric Williams.
Hey.
And we couldn't find another Eric, so we got Isaiah Perez here. Going to join us here today. So.
That's a good thing. Our limit on this show is 2 Erics, so you're right at the maximum. That's good. Who wants to go first with your question?
Go ahead. Okay, so today is the Navy's 246th birthday, and the theme for this year is Ready and Resilient. And I was just curious of what your thoughts are on what it means to be resilient.
Oh, it's a good time to ask that question. There's a lot of pressure, I think, to be resilient, and I think, you know, as a parent, one of the things that I've learned the last couple of years is just to encourage resilience, but also have space for when resilience is not at its peak. So I think I've learned that it's something to kind of strive for, but it's sometimes it's not always there, and kind of making room for those shifts and those up and downs. I think, but it's something that I try and concentrate on, especially when I'm shooting a film and start getting homesick and those sort of things. It's something I definitely try and tap into.
Oh, nice. Thank you. Big fan of your work, and I appreciate your time here today with us too.
It's a pleasure. Great to see you.
You guys got another question?
My question, morning, sir. My question is, I've really enjoyed watching you through the years, and you've played a lot of U.S. service members, real life U.S. service members in your films. Those roles have really shaped my idea of the military, and just really appreciate that. My question is, what drew you to those roles, and I guess what did you learn from playing those characters?
They've all been such incredible opportunities. Look, the favorite thing about my job is the finding the job, doing the research, and then preparing for the role. And the actual filming of it, whilst that's always really exciting, I always feel like the biggest gift is that I get to go back to school, because I wasn't a great student. And in every case, on Black Hawk Down, Lone Survivor, that they were incredible opportunities to learn about what you guys do, get a kind of real base level understanding of what it might be like to be in someone else's shoes that has to do the kind of work that they do. And they've been, the best part has always been the people I get to meet as a result of the role, and the military that was attached to both Black Hawk Down and Lone Survivor, and the people that you get to hang out with and learn from is just hands down the best part of the job. It is the best part of the job, just that pure access, the access that we've had to special forces, that we've had to people in the military, and just how always warm and unbelievably helpful they have been in every instance. And then on top of that, when I bump into you guys wherever, at an airport or an event or something, I really do feel the level of appreciation for the commitment that was applied to those projects by everyone involved. And it's a huge thrill. But by far and away, it's the people that I've met, and some of whom I've managed to keep in contact with, and it's just a really, really special thing. I don't know if I've answered your question succinctly, but I've always come away with just super strong positive memories.
Oh, thank you.
Appreciate your questions there in Singapore, guys, and for joining us here on the USO MVP. Appreciate you guys. Thank you again. Eric, a lot of your roles you have to take on an American accent. Is that something that came to you naturally, or was it something that you did with your work? Obviously, you probably have a dialect coach, but did you have a knack for that?
I had an interest in it as a kid. I always did impressions when I was a little kid, just for fun. And I had an ear for accents, and mainly because we had so much American television being streamed into our TVs when you were a young kid coming from my age group. So there was always an American voice coming out of the television for so many hours a day. Having said that, I do always use someone, because I live here in Melbourne, Australia, and as you can hear, there's nothing American about my native accent. So I don't take it for granted. I always start from scratch when I take on another job. Obviously, there's a baseline there that I fundamentally understand, that's like a muscle, but I still always engage with someone and never take it for granted that it's just going to happen magically. It is like riding a bike, but yeah, I always still do put the work in, because quite often it's specific to a particular region, or that character might have some traits that are different to an accent I've done in the past.
Where's a question for you from the chat box that is about acting? This comes from Michael Pritchard. He's at Maxwell Air Force Base in Montgomery, Alabama. His question is, what advice would you give new actors who are looking to find auditions?
Looking to find auditions? Wow. I'm probably a really bad person to ask that question. I guess it's a case of really getting in touch with the local acting community, whether it be classes or somehow getting in touch with, the most important thing is to somehow find an agent, and through an agency or through an agent, you'll have access and information about auditions and so forth. But getting involved in local theatre or acting schools but mainly agencies is the key.
Yeah, I was going to say that it's at the very core a grassroots effort. I mean, perhaps if you don't live in Los Angeles or New York or Chicago and you're trying to get into the business, you want to always be doing something. So whether it's local theater or, creating your own YouTube channel, just as long as you're doing something is kind of the first step down the road to getting an agent and getting those auditions. Michael, I hope
Absolutely.
that answered your question. Eric, we got our second live location lined up right now. We're going to go to Illinois and the Great Lakes Naval Station there. And I will be seeing you guys on Saturday. So welcome to the MVP. How you guys doing? I know you guys got a few questions there for Eric. Who'd like to go first?
Hi, I'm Matt. I have a question, actually. So I know that you do primarily, small indie films, nothing too crazy like Troy. But whenever you're done in that like super small filmmaking industry, you plan on racing anymore? I know you ended up crashing that Ford that you had back in the day, but you plan on doing any more racing?
Yeah, I did quite a bit of racing after that crash, but it was mainly circuit stuff. I was lucky enough to compete at Bathurst here in Australia and do 3 12 hours there, which is like my favorite track in the world. I sort of scaled back. I had co-drivers who got divorced, which never augurs well for a GT racing campaign. But I also, as I kind of progressed, I had this kind of not epiphany, but I've always ridden motorcycles and dirt bikes and so forth. And as you know, with motor racing comes a lot of logistics and a lot of organizing. And I got to the point where one day I just suddenly realized I have just as much fun, if not more fun, riding my 450cc dirt bike out in the bush as I do, with this huge machine that goes around motor racing. And so I sort of the last kind of 5 or 6 years have really just tapped my energies back into being out in the bush and being on my motorcycles, because I'm a bit more of a soloist, and I do enjoy that nature and freedom that comes with that. And motor racing is kind of like, to me, the opposite. So I do still enjoy it. I get on the track a lot on my motorcycle, but less on four wheels these days, just because it's just easier the other way.
Great question, great answer. One for all the gearheads out there. Who's next? Please step up to the microphone and ask your question for Eric.
Hi, I just wanted to know if you can remember, I know a while ago, what your favorite part of filming Hulk was.
Ooh, well, that's a tricky one. Maybe it was the day I finished. Maybe it was fine. It was a long shoot. Give me a break. It was a long shoot. I think that finding out that I was playing Bruce Banner was a very, very, very surreal, totally surreal moment. But I have to say, in terms of filming, any day and every day I was working with Nick Nolte was just pure fun insanity. He was just the craziest guy to work with and so much fun. And same with Sam Elliott, who I just love as an actor. Every time I get a chance to work with actors from that older generation that I grew up watching, is always my favorite time on set. So getting to work with those two guys was a huge treat. But as you saw in the film, Nick Nolte's character was just something else. And he had like an oxygen tank next to him on the side of the stage, and he'd like take a hit of oxygen before we'd do some scenes. And I said to him one day, I'm like, Nick, what's with the oxygen, man? Why are you taking a hit of oxygen? And he's like, it makes them think you're crazy and they let you get away with anything, So it was just kind of like this ruse that he would just use to get his way. But it was a lot of fun.
That's fantastic. Great insider story there. Who's next? I know we got one more there.
Howdy. Oh, wow. This is the first words I've ever exchanged with an actor. And yeah, loved your work in Troy as Hector. Every time I rewatch it, I'm like, can he beat him? Can he beat him? Oh, man.
Yes.
My question to you, is, what do you think about video game properties, like as they are translated into movies? And are there any projects you would be interested, like characters? Have you heard of any like you would like to play as? Audition for maybe Super Mario, even though the castle's already revealed. That's my question.
Yeah, I'm on the one hand, I'm a huge lover of computer games. On the other hand, I'm like a little bit clueless, and what I mean by that is, unsurprisingly, I do love spending time on a sim. I have just a really, really basic setup, and I find the level of realism for learning tracks and especially the last 18 months where I've spent so much time in lockdown, it really has been a great letting off of steam, with really tight travel restrictions here and so forth. So I really enjoy the racing games. I think the level of technology is incredible, but I don't spend a lot of time in the kind of third person, reality based games. So there are no characters, but I'm really excited by the adaptations in that space, and there's obviously a massive audience and interest in so many of those characters and games. But yeah, primarily my attachment to that has always been through car racing games.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us here on the USO MVP. Really appreciate your service. And as I said, I will be there live in person on Saturday. So I'm looking forward to seeing all of you guys at the Great Lakes.
Thanks for your questions, guys.
Appreciate you. Yeah, Eric, just to kind of follow up on one of the questions that they threw at you there regarding Hulk. So which is more difficult, doing a smaller character-based role or something that's mainly CGI like Hulk? Because I can imagine you had to do a lot of acting where there was nobody else there. That was very, very technical versus character driven. Which is more difficult for you?
Well, I got a bit lucky on the whole because actually, for me, physically working on that film it felt like quite a small film because it was the other guys who had all the CGI work. Whenever they were doing CGI stuff, I was either at home or in my trailer. So I haven't done Star Trek. Is probably the only film that I've done where there was a heavy CGI component. But even then, they built this incredibly huge studio for Nero's spaceship. So there were days when I come on set and I was like, I've actually got a real spaceship. Like none of this is even CGI, So I haven't done a whole ton. Like I haven't done a lot of kind of action-based CGI where I've had to pretend the person I'm acting with is on that green screen. I don't know that I would rush to do a job like that. I had a little tiny bit of it on King Arthur with the Guy Ritchie film, but very little. So I do prefer my acting with humans. There's no doubt about it.
You're getting a little shout out here from Michelle Pacheco from Naval Station San Diego. She just wants to say that she loves all of your work. So you've got fans out there tuning in from all over the country and all over the world right now. In fact, we're going to go to another part of the country. We're going to go to Fort Hood, which is in Texas, of course, to the USO office there. Guys, if you would start your camera and join us, welcome.
Welcome to Fort Hood, sir.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Whoever's up first with a question for Eric, step on up, introduce yourself.
Hey, how's it going, sir? I'm Carlos. I just had a question. You mentioned earlier as far as working with soldiers. But I wanted to know, from doing military films, what was your favorite part of the training while preparing for those films?
Oh, yeah. That's an easy one. So in preparing for Black Hawk Down, most of the cast, I'd say 90% of the cast, went to one training camp, and then they plucked 3 or 4 of us who were going to be playing Delta Force soldiers and sent us to a separate camp, and we had a really amazing one-on-one ratio experience. So it was myself, Bill Fichtner, Nicholas Costa-Waldau. I think that was it. That in the really small camp, but that was really, really special. And then we left, and then we went to Morocco, and then we had an amazing attachment of military there in Rabat, Morocco. led by Lee Van Arsdale, who I know is a legend amongst US military, and we worked really closely with Lee and a bunch of other people. So I'd say the training that we did for about a week or 10 days, where it was just 3 or 4 of us to about 8 or 10 guys, was really, really special. Yeah.
Thanks for your question, sir. Now we have a few more there. Who's next?
It's amazing how much you learn in such a small space of time when you're doing that stuff, and how much you forget afterwards. Like, it's just incredible.
Well, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Kelsey. Hi. This is my son,
Kelsey.
Nehemiah.
How you doing, buddy?
Okay, ask.
Why is Hulk green?
There you go.
Oh, that's a very good question. That is an excellent question. I'm not sure of the real reason for that. Maybe I didn't pay enough attention when I was a kid to some of the comic books. Maybe you might have more of an insight into why he's green and not red or purple. I know he's got purple shorts. Maybe he's trying to blend into the background. Maybe secretly he wishes he was a military guy. That's why he's gone with the camo look. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. It's a very good question, though. And you know what? I should have asked someone when I was making the film.
Okay.
Do you have any theories? Do you have any theories as to why he may be green?
Why do you think he's green?
Because he went like the military.
Are you?
Because he worked for the military, so the keywords for the military.
So you think he did military activities, and that's why he's green? Okay. Military training.
I like the theory.
Yeah. Oh, that's right, Dad.
Both of you.
Yeah. Thank you.
We appreciate your question. And thank you to the Hulk for single-handedly keeping the purple pants industry in business. I know there's a couple more questions for Eric there in Texas.
How you doing? This is Raul Campos. So you got started working in comedy. Do you have any comedy movies in the works?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. I don't have any in the works. The last one I did was a movie with Ricky Gervais called Special Correspondence, which you can probably find, I think, on Netflix, which was a lot of fun. I love Ricky Gervais. I think he's a absolute comedy genius. It's interesting. I don't get offered anywhere near as many funny roles as I do drama, obviously, and I think one of the reasons for that is when I sort of got my initial breaks in drama and went, into movies like Black Hawk Down and the movies subsequent to that, is all I was being offered was kind of these heavy, straight, dramatic roles. And I was really happy to embrace that and not try and confuse international audiences. Some people were like, why don't you do something funny and prove to people overseas that you're funny? I'm like, I don't want to prove anything to anyone. I'm getting offered these awesome roles. I don't want to go back and do sketch comedy now. Let's not confuse this. So I probably set myself up for the reality now that most of what I get sent is straight drama, and I'm fine with that. They're the movies I love to see. But I would love to do more comedy if the right thing came along, for sure.
Thank you. That's a great question, man. Thank you. And I believe we have one more there in Fort Hood.
How you doing, Eric? Stephen Martinez. I know you mentioned earlier that you enjoyed working with stars that you grew up watching, but what other roles did you enjoy playing, or what was your favorite role playing, like in your American movies?
Ooh, that's a tricky one. I guess I look at sort of anything kind of non-Australian as kind of international. And someone mentioned earlier, Troy was probably one of the most spectacular experiences on so many levels. Like, I had a really, really long amount of time to train and prepare. I had to learn how to ride a horse, and then it ended up being bareback, and then all these fight sequences, an incredible cast, getting to work with someone like Brad Pitt and having those two characters go head to head. The whole experience of making that film was really, really, really special. And we filmed in a lot of different locations, and we ended up down in Cabo San Lucas for a majority of the end of the film with a lot of those epic fight scenes. So I think those memories kind of, the shooting experience tends to, taint your your memory in a positive way. So I'd say that was definitely one of the more favorite ones, just because of, and I love working outdoors. I don't like being in a studio. So Troy is a real standout for me, because pretty much I was just in my little skirt and thongs with a sword or a horse every single day, and I just loved it.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
mate.
you for your question, sir. Thank you to everybody there in Fort Hood, Texas. Appreciate you guys. And thanks for joining us here on the MVP series. You know, to follow up a little bit from that question, Eric, is there a role that got away? You know, I know that at your level, it comes down to maybe 2 or 3 actors who are competing for this one role. Is there a role that you didn't get that you really wished you had gotten?
It's not. I mean, sometimes you miss stuff because of timings, and there's probably only one that I would have definitely done, but I just couldn't because of a clash in filming. But the person, obviously, who ended up doing that role, which is why you never mention them, did an amazing job, and the film's fantastic. But there hasn't been too many, and I always feel really fortunate. You know, every time I go to it, I don't do a lot of films back to back. So there is inevitably always things that I'm saying no to that you could do, or that you're missing out on, because I have always lived here in Australia. The rhythm of my life has usually been, I go away for 4 to 6 months, make a film, and then I come home for a good 4, 5, 6 months and just kind of chill and get on the bikes and live my life and go to the football and hang out with my family and kind of refresh and then go again. So I tend not to go back to back to back to back. So there's a lot of stuff that I've missed out on, presumably, with that approach, but it keeps me fresh, and I'm still going. So it sort of worked for me.
Keeps you fresh and also keeps you sane. You gotta live your life at the same time that you're entertaining everybody else. Talk a little bit about your role in Dirty John, and if you haven't seen it, those of you who are joining us, you really need to check it out, because it is amazing. And it's a rare thing where such a compelling real life story. Actually, I thought the dramatized version that you starred in was even better than the documentaries I had seen about that story. Talk a little bit about that experience and taking on that role, which could not have been easy because he was not a good guy.
No, absolutely. And it is a huge challenge, and getting under the skin of someone so evil. But at the same time, I felt very compelled that if I was able to make him as evil as he really was, and make him as awful as he really was, that's what needed to be done to make the character of Deborah Newell understandable, and for us to try and empathize with how someone could be in her position and be manipulated to that level, and for us to have less judgment of the people who find themselves in that position. So I felt very passionate about the project. I loved the podcast. I thought it was a fascinating story, and I hope it shone a light on an area that whilst very difficult for a lot of people to watch, it helped spark conversations around some of those areas that are very difficult for people to deal with. But it was an incredible job, incredible experience, and working with Connie Britton, who you'll all know and love from so much of her previous work, was a real highlight. But ultimately, sometimes you just have to really commit to the horrible side of a character, and you can only really do that when you really trust the director and the material, and that it's going to be presented, in the right light and with the right focus.
Yeah, you mentioned Connie Britton. She was just fabulous too. And the two of you guys together really just made it something very, very special. Again, if you haven't had a chance to see Dirty John, the movie that Eric is in, definitely check that out, because it's really, really entertaining. And like you said, informative. Got another one for you here, Eric. This one comes from Jasmine Chandler. She says, hi, joining from Elson Air Force Base in Alaska. And she loved The Other Boleyn Girl. And she wants to know, do you enjoy filming period pieces?
Absolutely. I had an amazing time. It was an incredible piece of material. I really loved the Philippa Gregory novel that the film was based on, and Peter Morgan did a great job with the script. And come on. I mean, playing Henry VIII and having Natalie Portman and Scarlett Johansson opposite you with an incredible cast was amazing. And I do love doing period films. I love the work that departments do on films, when it comes to art direction and set design and costume. And so when you're in a period film, it kind of heightens those skill levels in all those departments. And I'm always just in awe. I love walking around the production a few weeks before we start filming and just seeing the amount of work that's going into all that stuff. And, as actors, we just kind of turn up on the day and get into the costume and get to benefit from all this amazing work that's been done. And so the period films are a lot of fun, and you do pinch yourself. Like even a film like Munich, which was set in the 70s, every day I'd go to work and I'd look around and everyone's got the sideburns and the flares and the big collars and the cars, and you just pinch yourself. It's like literally being transported into another period of time. And it's almost like you never want to go to lunch where you'll see people dressed normally. You just want to kind of like stay there. But I do love them, absolutely.
And as a car guy, you got to love doing a movie that's set in the 70s too, because, the sets there.
Yeah.
Especially liking to work outside, you get to be around the cars. That's really cool. And is there a period of history where you would like to feature in one of your films? I mean, you've had, going all the way back to Troy, obviously, and then Munich, that you just mentioned, to the 70s. That's quite a span of time. Is there somewhere in between there, that a period in history that you'd like to tell the story of?
Yes, the 50s. Some great cars made in the mid-50s. In fact, Chris, all my favorite cars are around 54, 55. But yeah, I think that's a wonderful period as well. And I'd say 50s and 70s. Yeah, Munich was set late 70s, and I love the cinematography and detail and stuff in that film. But yeah, 50s as well. I love the 50s.
Well, I think that you need to develop a project that's based in Cuba. Because they're kind of locked in with the cars from the 50s. So that's got to be an automotive heaven for you.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right, man. Well, let's go to our fourth and final live location. And for this one, we are going to Okinawa, Japan. And this is at the USO office in Kadena there. Hi, and welcome. How you guys doing?
Hi, guys.
Hello, sir. This is Micah Taylor. We're with USO Kadena in Okinawa, Japan. We have Jacqueline and Keiko here, and we have awesome questions for you. Go ahead, Jacqueline.
Hi.
Fantastic.
So I'm Jacqueline, Ohio gozaimasu from our side of the world. I recently hosted a spooky movie night for a group of friends, and we featured Deliver Us from Evil. And it got me curious, is filming a movie like that as scary as watching it?
Oh, great question. Thanks for that. So here's the thing about that film. I really spooked the hell out of myself researching that film and lost a lot of sleep right up until pretty much we started filming. And then I had to do a deal with myself and say I had to put my acting hat on and just cut the research now and get down to work because it was freaking me out. So yes, I found the research for that film and the whole, the world of exorcism and all that sort of stuff quite challenging. I had a great director in Scott Derrickson, and then by the time we got to film, as you've seen, I had the wonderful Joel McHale alongside me, who, as you could well expect, helped to lighten the load every single day that I would go to work. And he's a hilarious guy and a really close friend. And so yeah, I really enjoyed working on that film a lot. And there were times when the set does kind of have a feel to it, but I'd say that the research and the period leading up to filming was the most scary.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
That was a great question. How about you?
I wanted to say that I really enjoyed how you portrayed the Frogman on Lone Survivor. And so my question is, did you train up with the SDV guys, and were there family and friends on set? And if there were, did you feel the pressure, of really portraying them in their last moments on life?
Yeah, there's always a lot of pressure. But as I was saying before, one of the things that is so incredibly helpful to us as actors is that the military that inevitably gets attached to these productions that come and help us, are so incredibly helpful and warm. It really kind of lowers the temperature of the pressure. And in my case, on Lone Survivor, playing Commander Eric Christensen and knowing what happened to him and his men, it's something that you do feel the weight of, and it's a real privilege. And so you're just trying to do the best job possible. You're not trying to be the exact person. You're trying to embody the spirit of that person. Is kind of what I try and concentrate on. And I got to meet some friends of his that had some really helpful pieces of information. And sometimes it's just little tiny bits of specific detail here and there that can kind of help with that. But inevitably, there's a huge responsibility. I really felt that on Black Hawk Down. I've never had the opportunity to meet the particular individual on whom my character is based upon. I've heard a lot about him, and I hope to one day run into him. And there'd be just kind of like a knowing wink or nod, and I imagine that's about all I would get. I'm in awe of some of those people, and so it is a massive sense of responsibility. But I felt it very heavily on Black Hawk Down, most definitely.
Thank you.
Hello, sir. Oh, thank you. Sorry. I know we have a lot of our service members who are away from their families overseas at the moment. What advice would you give to them being on set and away from your family? How do you cope with situations like that?
Yeah, it's a really tricky one. This might sound unusual, but sometimes when I meet younger actors who have families and they're kind of gearing up for that journey, one of the things I say to them is don't feel pressure to talk every single day, and that can sort of seem counterintuitive, but I think sometimes once you allow that sort of space, there's more chance that you have really great connections maybe every second day. And whilst I'd love to talk to my family every single day, I know that it's going to be an absolute disaster if I try and do that. So that was something that took me a long time to figure out, that it was okay to go a day or two and reconnect. But ultimately, I had to face the facts that they were actually really, really okay without me, which was I think the biggest adjustment. And sometimes it's probably always harder for the person who's away than it is for the people who are at home in many instances. But what are my tricks? I'm always reading a good book. I love a distraction. I love a little something to watch that is really transformative, whether it be a travel show or something that takes me out of my own head. But yeah, I hope that helps. But not trying to talk every single day, which is probably not even an option for most of you guys anyway. So you probably tick that box pretty easily.
As a military spouse, I agree.
Hey, before we let you ladies go, what were some of the other movies that you screened on your spooky movie night?
Ooh, Ernest Scared Stupid.
Oh my God.
That's good. You know what? I never would have expected you were going to say that. That was very out of left field. Yeah, Ernest is a classic. Any other true horror movies though?
I think we did The Haunting of Emily Rose.
Good one.
Yeah, the Insidious movies.
Okay. Those two.
Those will test you. Those will test you.
Yeah, Emily Rose was a great one. That was by the same director as Deliverance from Evil, Scott Derrickson. So I really enjoyed that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
great.
cool.
I love a good scary movie. I love Deliverance from Evil. It was a great movie.
Me too. I got to throw in my 2 cents. The Paranormal Activity movies are among the scariest I've ever seen. Parts 1 and 2 especially. So don't watch those with people, because they're very hard to watch by yourself. Yeah. Hey, ladies, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, ladies. Nice to meet you.
And Eric, what about you? You got any favorite scary movies? We got Halloween coming up in just a few weeks here, so maybe some people would like to hear some of your scary movie recommendations.
Ooh, I remember. I don't know if this holds up, but I remember the Blair Witch Project when that first came out as being a bit of a game changer. And as the ladies mentioned just before, The Exorcism of Emily Rose is a really probably one of my favorites actually. Because it's such a different kind of movie. But I love the old classics. I love the old Poltergeist and Exorcist. I just think they're incredible.
Yeah, you mentioned Blair Witch Project. That was that first like kind of found footage style of movie, and I think it does hold up. I watched it recently, a couple, maybe months ago or so, and definitely holds up as scary. So that's a great one to add.
Oh, good.
Eric, got another one for you. This one comes from the chat box. Cindy Kirkman, she is also in Japan. She says, "I love The Time Traveler's Wife. What do you take away from that, and what do you hope audiences will take away from a sentimental film like that?"
Oh, yeah, that was really, really special. That was a really tough adaptation. As many of you know who read the book, it jumps all over the place. And so adapting that into a 90, 100-minute film was a real challenge. I think we got there in the end, but it was a really tough adaptation. I was blessed to be able to have Rachel McAdams share the screen with, and she was attached to the project before I was. So I was very fortunate to play the role of Henry. I kind of just got what I got out of it was just cherishing every moment that you have together and never knowing what could be around the corner. And I think that dynamic that was established between those two characters, where Henry could disappear at any moment, not have control over whether he came back or not, was really interesting. But it was an amazing film to make. I'm really, really proud of it, and it won't come as a shock to anyone to know that Rachel McAdams is a absolute wonderful, wonderful human being who was just incredible to work with. But yeah, it's one of my favorite films that I've done for sure.
And now I know that you mentioned you're in Melbourne right now. Are you there working, or is this strictly just one of your recharging periods? Do you do work back in your home country as well?
Yes, I did a film here a couple of years ago, which you guys will be able to find. It's called The Dry, which is based on a big book by Jane Harper here in Australia, which was an international bestseller, and that's like a crime drama thriller set in a tiny country town here in Australia, and that was a real thrill to be able to do something here for the first time in many years. But yeah, as I say, I live here. I'm here most of the time. I've been stuck here for over 2 years now because of the pandemic and kind of unable to leave. So I'm looking forward to getting back to normal work sometime in 2022. So I've just sort of been working behind the scenes here whilst I'm here, working on projects for the future and writing and producing, and just trying to stay sane and look forward to things going back to normal next year.
Any projects that you have upcoming that you can talk about?
No, I've really been on lockdown here for a long time. So The Dry would probably be my most recent project that would be there for people to find.
Got it. Now, what about a dream project? Do you have anything that you eventually want to get to at some point in your career, a passion project, perhaps?
Yeah, I've got a project that I've been working on for the last couple of years, which is based on a true story of a guy called Mike Hailwood, who's arguably one of the great motorcycle racers of all time. And my partner and I have the rights to that story, and I've been working on that script for the last few years, and it's coming along, and we hope to turn that into some sort of form of reality in the future when things go back to normal. But that's been, I guess, my main focus during the big lockdown period here has just been on the writing side of things. But I'm always really open, Chris. One of the things I love about this job is I have no idea what's going to come next, and I enjoy not being attached to ongoing things for that reason. That's why I'm not involved in a ton of sequels and prequels or TV series. I love watching them, but I love the freedom that comes from being an actor for hire and not knowing every 6 months where you're going to be and what's going to happen. And I love that freedom, and I love that freedom of choice to be able to duck and weave into different genres and different characters. It's why I wanted to do this job.
That's great stuff. And I like hearing the fact that you have a project in development that is motor oriented. Kind of knew that.
Yeah, I got to have one in there.
A gearhead for life. I love it. This also comes from the chat box here as a shout out. Anara Farina from Station Chatham. Actually her first duty station as a coastie, and she's got 19 years in. And she can definitely say that that was a great way to learn about the Coast Guard. And she says, thank you very much for all the years of entertainment that you have provided. And Eric, I want to say thank you very much for joining us here on the USO MVP. It has been a real pleasure speaking to a man of your talents and also a fellow gearhead. Keep safe on the road on the 2 wheels and the 4 wheels. And I want to let you know that there are people joining us from Kentucky, Virginia, Germany, Wisconsin, Georgia, Texas, Florida, Hawaii, North Carolina, Ohio, New Jersey, New York, Japan, Guam, California, New Mexico, Nevada, and South Korea. So truly a worldwide experience. How was it for you?
It was so much fun. It's an absolute pleasure. I feel very privileged to be invited to be here today, and just thanks to everyone for tuning in and for all the work you're doing. And stay safe. And I hope your next homecoming is everything you hope it will be. And it's just been a real privilege. I've always have a great time spending time with military, and thanks to all the work and contribution you've made to my work over the years as well. It's you can't do without it. And like I was saying before, it's something it's an absolute privilege and something I don't take for granted. And just thanks for having me, and great to meet you, Chris, finally.
Appreciate you, man. From a Mopar guy to a Ford guy, Eric Bana, thank you once again. See you on down the road, my friend.
Cheers. Thanks, everybody.